Today we're moving on with our solving equations unit, and you're going to be able to solve one-step equations through multiplying and dividing today. So recall from Friday we solved equations one step through adding and subtracting, meaning if I had an expression like or an equation, x plus 4 equals negative 3. To solve means I need to get my variable by itself. To get the variable by itself, I have to do the inverse operation. So notice that what's on the same side of the equation sign as my x is my 4. So I have to undo 4. So I said, well, plus 4, the inverse of plusing 4 would be to subtract 4. And then equations are all about balance, so I would need to subtract 4 on the right-hand side. And you'd be left with x. That would cancel out, equals, notice how they're the same, so you actually add them and keep it negative. X would have been negative 7. Same thing today, actually a little bit easier because all you're going to have to do is multiply and divide. Remember, the inverse of multiplying is dividing, and the inverse of dividing is multiplying. You'll want to remember that for today. So, solving one-step equations, remember our goal, get the variable alone. So that's our goal. Our goal is get variable alone. That's always our goal when we're solving, is to get the variable alone. So I always say it aloud and then ask myself what the inverse is. The first one is 8 times x equals negative 24. Notice how I said the operation aloud, 8 times x. Me saying the operation aloud, make sure that I can identify what inverse operation to use. So if it's 8 times x is negative 24, the inverse of multiplying would be dividing. I expect that you're going to show your division with a division bar. You cannot use the division symbol. We're at an age where division bars represent division. So remember, you have to do it to both sides because you have to maintain that equality. The 8's cancel out and you get x equals negative 3. And I'm done because x is all by itself. Okay, I'm going to say the next one aloud. Negative 3 times y equals negative 12. Notice when I say it aloud, I say the operation, negative 3 times y is negative 12. The inverse of timesing is to divide, so I would need to divide by negative 3. And I must do it to both sides to maintain that balance. The negative 3's cancel out, and you get y is equal. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is 8, positive 4. Okay, the next one is 6 times t equals negative 66. So the inverse of times is to divide, and I must do it to both sides to maintain that balance. The 6's cancel out, and you get t equals negative 66 divided by 6 is a negative 11. So you should be feeling pretty confident with this, with being able to multiply and divide. It's much quicker than adding and subtracting. Okay, the next one, 11m equals 121. That's 11 times m is 121. So the inverse of times is to divide, and you have to do it to both sides. So m equals, because the 11's canceled out, 121 divided by 11 is 11. Okay, so this next one looks a little bit more tricky. But again, all I do is say the equation aloud with the operation vocab word. So this is really, remember back in, I think it was our 3rd unit, where I said that it doesn't matter where the negative goes. The negative can go on top, on the side, or on the bottom, as long as there's just one negative. So really, I'm going to put this negative down to the denominator. So this is really x over negative 5 equals negative 30. And I can do that because of that property that it doesn't matter where that negative goes, side, top, bottom. It's all equivalent. And now I'll say this aloud. This is x over, but over means divide. So x divided by negative 5 equals negative 30. The inverse of divide is to multiply, so I'm going to multiply both sides to maintain that balance by a negative 5. And it cancels out that negative 5, and you get x equals negative 30 times negative 5 is a positive 150. Okay, and the next one, x over 9 equals negative 25. Well, I want to use the operation vocab word. So this is really x divided by 9 is negative 25. The inverse of divide is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides of 9 by 9 to get rid of the 9. The 9 cancels out, and you get x equals negative 25 times 9. Think about if you had 9 quarters, you'd have $2.25, and then it would be negative. And that's the final answer there. A calculator is okay today. This whole unit, a calculator is okay. So make sure that you have a calculating device and you can use it if needed. Okay, the next one here, I'm going to apply the same rule as we did in the beginning. So this is negative x over 3 is negative 7.2. Well, the negative is on the top and it's kind of hard to know what to do with it. So I'm going to rewrite it and put the negative on the bottom. I can do that, remember, because it doesn't matter if it's on the top, on the bottom, or the side. It doesn't matter. So this is really x over negative 3 equals negative 7.2. Now use the vocab word. X over negative 3 means divide. So the inverse of dividing would be to multiply. And I'm going to multiply both sides by that negative 3. It cancels out the negative 3, and you get negative 7.2 times negative 3 is 21.6 positive. X equals a positive 21.6. And we're done. Last one like this. X over 5 equals 0.14. Remember, over means divide, so this is x divided by 5 equals 0.14. The inverse of divide is to multiply. You have to maintain balance and do it to both sides. That gets rid of the 5, and you get x is equal 0.14 times 5 is equal to a 0.7. Or 0.7d, it doesn't matter, that's all equivalent. Okay, so summary of this one, of this page here, all you do is use the vocab word aloud. So I say times, like the top 6, I think it was, I use the word multiply, so, or times, and then I knew to divide. The bottom 4, I use the vocab word over first. I said x over 5, negative x over 5, and then I remember that over means divide. That helps me know then that the inverse is multiplying. Okay, the next one, we are going to bump up the rigor, and we are going to do fraction equations. For fraction equations, if there is a whole number, you want to make a 1 on the bottom. And then to get rid of a fraction, what you really want to do is multiply through by the reciprocal. And I'll show you why. If I have 3 over 4 and I times it by the reciprocal, 4 over 3, notice what happens. That turns to 1, that cancels out and turns to 1, and you're just left with a 1 in front. And remember, 1 can hide when it's in front. So my goal for the reciprocal is to just cancel out all the numbers, and that's what you want to do. Okay, I'm not going to do that first one first because you have that negative in there. I'm going to go ahead and move to the second one before I do that first one. So I have a whole number, so I want to put a 1 on the denominator. And then I want to multiply through by the reciprocal. I want to specify you multiply through by the reciprocal of what's in front of x. Is in front, let's be more general, of the variable. Because you don't want to times through by 1 over 6. That's not going to do anything. Remember, we're solving, and solving means we need to get the variable alone. So clearly I need to move what's in front of the variable so I can get it by itself. Okay, so 3/5 x equals 6 over 1. Well, I want to get rid of that 3/5, so I'm going to times it by 5 over 3. And then algebra is all about balance, so I need to do it to both sides. That cancels everything out, and I'm left with x on the left. And then you're going to have to remember, when you multiply fractions, you want to look to cross simplify. So 6 and 3, I can divide both of them by 3. And that turns to a 2. And then you go top times top. 2 times 5 is 10 over bottom times bottom. Or just 10 is your final answer. So your x equals 10. Okay, I'm still going to skip out on that first one, and I'm going to go over to my last one here. So we have 1 over 5, or 1/5 x, equals 8 over 3. It looks ugly, but again, I'm just following my steps, and my steps say to multiply through by the reciprocal of what's in front of the variable. So what's in front of the variable is that 1/5 x. So that's what I need to get rid of. So I'm going to times both sides by the reciprocal. Okay? That cancels out all of the numbers, and we have x all by itself then. Equals, I check to see if I can cross simplify. There's nothing I can cross simplify, so I go top times top. 8 times 5 is 40, over bottom times bottom. 3 times 1 is 3, and then you simplify that. 3 goes into 40 13 times, because 13 times 3 is 39. 1's left over, 3 as the denominator. Okay, we're going to work counterclockwise here. Next one I'm going to do is this one. So I have a whole number, and our strategy is to put a 1 on the bottom. And then you want to multiply by the reciprocal of what's in front of x. So I don't have much room here. I'm just going to do it to the side of x. So it's going to be 9 over 5, and you have to do it to both sides. Notice that canceled out everything by the x. And then the 5's cancel out on the left side, and you're left with just a -1 on top here. Top times top, 9 times -1 is -9. Over bottom times bottom, it's just 1, so you can just leave it. Equals, everything canceled out by x, so it just equals x. -9 equals x. And your last example for today. 10 equals -2/3 m. So I want to put a 1 on the denominator. And then I want to get rid of what's in front of the m. So to get rid of it, I need to times by the reciprocal, 3 over 2. And then to get rid of the negative, you just times through by a negative, and that will cancel out the negative. Do it to both sides, so negative 3 over 2